Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 213. From the Vault, episode 101, We Want to Hear You, putting your voice out there vulnerably. Well, welcome back to this month, which has been pretty much about grabbing great episodes from the Vault that are tying into the Facebook Live sessions that I'm doing. So we've been talking this month about healthy communication. What does it mean to be emotionally honest? What does it mean to not be emotionally honest? In this next episode from the Vault, we get into what it looks like when we're afraid to use our voice, why that happens, and how to work on it. As we usually talk about on the show, vulnerable, emotionally honest conversation is assertive and healthy, and necessary if we want genuine connection in our conversations. It's also what we've been talking about every Wednesday on the live sessions, so hit the link in the show notes to be a part of those. All right, here's episode 101. We Want to Hear You. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 101. We Want to Hear You, putting your voice out there vulnerably. Okay, so as you know, all month we've been talking about one of my favorite topics, assertiveness, and the struggles that get in the way. And so far this month we've talked about what assertiveness looks like, what it doesn't look like, such as people-pleasing or acting out aggressively or passive-aggressively. Assertiveness is about staying in our own truth, on our own side, keeping the focus on ourselves, and putting ourselves out into the world with the most vulnerability and emotional honesty and authenticity that we can have the courage to show. Okay, so today I want to talk about the actual doing it, the actual using your voice and what that looks like, why it may be hard for you to do that, and ways you can begin to practice. All right, so first, I want to thank so many of you for tuning in and celebrating last week's 100th episode. It was quite a milestone and quite an achievement for me. And it's really neat to see the podcast grow and help more and more people, because that's what matters most to me, how it's helping you. So if you can, when you have a moment, send me an email or leave a positive review on whatever platform you're listening to. And the reason really is I want other people to see what you're getting out of this podcast, because maybe they could benefit from it as well. So thank you in advance for doing that. All right. So if using our voice was easy, we would just do it, right? Not always, and not for all of us. Remember how 2 weeks ago we said how people pleasers start off as parent pleasers, and that kids need approval, love, and acceptance from your parents to feel okay? Well, a lot of us learned that using our voice may not have been a good idea in the family. And then we had experiences ongoing after that, enough of them to imprint us, to make us think that we shouldn't use our voice. Something bad might happen. We might lose love or approval. People won't even listen. They won't take us seriously. They might, in the case typically of sibling behavior, ridicule us, shame us, embarrass us, humiliate us. Remember, parents who are so preoccupied with their own pain, siblings who are preoccupied with their own pain because their parents can't be what they need, can make it difficult for you to have had your voice in an assertive way, not in an aggressive way to act out to get what you needed, but not stuffing your feelings either. So there are very good reasons why you may have a hard time really putting your truth out there today. And that's okay, and it's not your fault. Like you've heard me say many times, 4-year-olds know exactly how they feel and they have no problem telling us. And I want you to take a moment right now and think back to what it was like when you were 4, how you might have expressed yourself. What are the stories you've heard about yourself and the family? Even those stories can give you some really great information. Like if a family member says, God, I can't believe when you were little, you just wouldn't shut up. What kind of connotation goes with that? Not a positive one. So I want you to think about the messages that you received about being an expressive 4-year-old as well. Because those messages, remember, we can turn into beliefs that we hold and then live out. Conversely, you may have grown up in a family where people using their voice was a good thing and that your individuality was cherished and expected and nurtured. Most families are somewhere on that continuum between wonderful that I just described and rotten like I described earlier. So you have to figure out kind of where your origin story is. And it's not just in the family. A lot of times kids can really get shamed and bullied in the classroom when they read aloud or they don't know the answer or they don't speak well, things like that. So it doesn't really matter where we get our shaming messages, but we do want to understand that the more formative years are the most imprinting, and the people closest to us where we care about their opinion, that's going to matter the most and help us form the most solid beliefs, okay? All right, so what do I mean by not using your voice? There's the obvious, not saying anything at all. I think we all kind of know that. You want to say something and you don't. You walk away and say, damn it, I wish I had told them A, B, and C. But there are other ways that we don't use our real authentic voice. Every time you say yes when you mean no. When you agree to do something you don't have time for. Saying, oh, that tastes great, looks fabulous, and was just what I needed. Now, caveat, we're not out here to hurt people, but we also want to be as real as we can be. Another example is being wishy-washy in your tone, really tentative, ending your statements with a question kind of vibe, or checking it out with others. Don't you agree? Don't you think? Right? So being wishy-washy instead of being firm and definitive in the I've decided kind of stance. So when you're unsure, you're not confident, you're questioning. Another very common example is you say something and then someone argues with you. Well, I don't want to go to that restaurant, they say. And you're like, oh, that's okay. I really didn't need to eat Italian tonight anyway. And you backpedal. You backpedal right out of your truth. You just do a 180 from what you just said because you did not get the immediate acceptance of the other. If we're honest, when we use our voice, especially when we're just starting to do that, we want everyone to agree with us all the time to make it easy. It's a hell of a lot harder to then look at them and say, I really want Chinese food tonight, man. I'm sorry. So backpedaling. Backpedaling on what you just said to accommodate the other and to avoid conflict. And to keep the peace at any price. The price is you just lost your voice. Your truth just went right out of the room. It does not exist here anymore. Another subtle way of not using your voice is not setting other boundaries. Like around your time, like around how people treat you. Around what you want to participate in and don't want to participate in. Letting people interrupt you and talk over you. Another big one is being defensive. Being defensive instead of owning it. When we're defensive, we're not taking responsibility. We're making it about them. No, it's not true. You can't think that about me. You can't feel that way about me. I need to change that immediately. That fear of them actually thinking, feeling, deciding something about us is what we can't handle. So admitting it, validating they aren't crazy is what we're supposed to do. Because think about it for a moment. If you want validation, you think others don't? Of course they do. We're all the same. And a big lesson in assertiveness is that objectivity and that humility, that we're all the same and we all deserve the same. It's not just you. Now, you may start out thinking, it's just me. I'm going to get everyone to honor me now. I'm going to put my truth out there. I don't care who I knock down on the way. But eventually we understand that there's healthy detachment and separateness, and we actually want others to feel as honored as we want to feel. So finally, another way we don't use our voice is denying what we deserve. We all deserve love and respect, kindness, help, partnership, time together, maybe a better salary. We deserve to take care of ourselves. We deserve to change our mind. We deserve to change our life. And that's a belief. And until we change that at the core, we're not going to live our lives as if we do. All right, so that gives you a sense of some of the ways you may not be using your voice. There's a million others. There's so many subtle pieces to this. I could go on all day, but I won't. But I think you get the sense. You're not speaking your truth. You're not saying what you mean. You're not meaning what you say, or you're not saying it at all. You're omitting it. And that's manipulation. Remember, that's avoidance of the outcome, but that's controlling that outcome. Can't do impression management and people please and feel authentic and really have our voice in the room. Okay. So conversely, what do we mean when we say use your voice? And when I say your voice, I want you to think about mostly first your inner voice. What's really going on the inside of you, even if it's only intuitive at the moment. Then the goal here is to make your outside voice that you put out into the world match it. Where you get to the point one day where you don't even have to think about being honest. Just put it out there. There's no energy being expended trying to couch it in a certain way, hide parts of it, compartmentalize parts of you. Because the person in front of you probably can't handle that aspect of you, or so you think. So it's how you really feel right now, what you really think right now, what you really need right now, where your head is right now, and where your heart is. And why that makes sense for you and why it matters to you. Using your voice means expressing what you really think and believe appropriately, not to change other people or change their minds, just to express you. It's to express what you need, what your boundaries are, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Where your heart is in a relationship is another way. Essentially, using your voice means your vulnerability. Whether you are able to open up about shame that you're feeling, fear, a wish, or maybe it's about setting limits and risking rejection and conflict and essentially abandonment at the very worst. In essence, whatever your truth is for you right now, today, regardless, this is key, regardless of what others themselves think, feel, and need. Remember, just because you doesn't mean they. They can have their own reality. And it's not for us to say whether that is better or worse than ours right now. We don't get to judge that. Only they do. We just want to focus on our own. And that may sound very simple and very easy. That can be extremely hard to do if you grew up with blurred boundaries in your relationships. And over time, slowly but surely, you got the vibe that it wasn't okay to have a dissenting opinion at the dinner table, to feel differently than your partner or your sister, to want different things than your family wants for you, to take a detour in your life, to change things up. A lot of boundary work goes into assertiveness first. We have to feel separate. We have to have empathy and understanding and acceptance around how the other might feel when we use our voice, and we have to learn to let go of that outcome. And that's a lot of work. It's work, I think, that if you've been listening to the episode, you already are organically doing, I hope. And finally, using your voice, this is an important aspect. Means you're relatively calm, you're strong in your opinion, your feeling, your thought, your need, your boundary. You do it with inflection, because a lot of people can keep their voice very monotone so they don't let people in, or they can do it very quietly because they're afraid of being too loud. Sometimes they're too loud because they're afraid people won't respect them if they're not. You're being emotionally congruent. What you're saying matches the tone and the inflection in your voice. But it's peaceful. It's not aggressive. It's not a bunch of fear. And that is what's key. You've heard me say before, you got to get this straight with yourself, whatever it may be. When you've made peace with your truth, it's going to be a lot easier to just express that truth to others. You're just telling them what you've come to terms with. Assertiveness is not about making sure they get it, they understand, they respect you, they love that you're being stronger now and you have bigger boundaries. Because here's the thing, oftentimes that's not going to be the case. And it can't be about them. If it's about them, you got to regroup, figure it out. What are you really trying to do? Because your voice is about you, not them. It's hard to do this, number one, in the beginning. So I want you to know that. If you're just starting to do this, you're not going to do that. You're still going to be so damn focused on how they're going to take it, what their face is going to look like, how they're going to feel, what they're going to think of you. Your membrane around yourself isn't strong enough yet, and that's okay. But I want you to aspire to the vibe that it's about you, not them anymore. Because remember, with people-pleasing, avoidance, and other forms of manipulation, we're all focused on that outcome, on their possible reactions, the impending doom of conflict. And basically, you're trying to control the outcome by contorting yourself to be what they need. So those awful things you fear won't happen. With being assertive is opposite of that. You're simply giving others information about you, though. What you think, feel, and need, believe, and are choosing to do. For you, not them. It's not about them. And if you're secretly hoping for that outcome, remember, go back to the drawing board because you're not ready yet. And that's okay. That means to me, that tells me that you still have some fear that it's okay to need what you need. That it's okay for you to say no. That it's okay for you to change or leave the relationship or ask for help. And that tells me you might need other safe people around you or a good coach to cement that for you so that you finally believe that it's okay to ask for healthy things and it's okay to stand your truth. So it just means that we still have too much fear and maybe other distorted beliefs that are in the way of being calm and grounded. And remember, they get to have a voice too. And maturity means that we learn to accept and respect and tolerate others' emotions too. Their no to us, perhaps. And know that as you begin to really value your own thoughts, your feelings, your truth, you'll have respect. And guess what? You're eventually going to require other people in your life to speak their truth as well. Because that's going to be the new way to operate. And anything else is going to be pretty disgusting. Like passive-aggressive behavior, acting out instead of being emotionally honest and direct, insinuating, using guilt manipulation. You've outgrown that way of trying to get needs met. And so you're going to require, and you're probably going to expect that, yeah, other people do this too. They're just telling me the truth. And I want you to take them at face value. And I want you to want and need more in your relationships. All right. So when to speak up? Because this is a question that I get all the time. Mary, when is it appropriate and when is it not? And first, I want to preface by saying every situation is different and we have a lot of things to consider. Is this a good time? Okay. Am I being respectful? Is it appropriate? I mean, like at a funeral or someone just had something bad happen. Do I bring up that thing that pissed me off last week? Maybe not. Maybe I'll wait. Okay. As long as I'm not waiting all the time and finding excuses. So you have to find that healthy middle there. All right. So timing is important. Follow your intuition. Then also know you're going to screw this up. And that's okay. You're going to wait to the last minute till they have to get off the phone or walking out the door because you're not going to have courage. And finally, it's too late to be scared anymore. You just have to do it. You're going to screw this up and then you're just going to go back and apologize. Sorry, I threw that at you when you're walking out the door. I realized you didn't have enough time to talk about it. But when to speak up, what situations really warrant it? First one, I think, is when someone has crossed a line and they're trying to instill fear in you. We're not supposed to have fear in our relationships, remember? Ever. There's no need. Only fear we should have in relationships is if we don't want to lose someone's respect and love and we don't want them to feel unsafe. Then we choose not to be a jerk. Or we choose not to be irresponsible. That's a different kind of fear. When someone's being verbally abusive to you, never, ever, ever is it okay. Shaming, being condescending, calling you names, threatening you of any kind, threatening control of money, threatening physical harm, threatening just to terrorize you emotionally. I don't care. And I don't care if they really didn't mean it, because that's not okay. Threatening divorce is a big one, or threatening to leave the relationship. When you hear people do that often, but they never pull the trigger, that's abusive. Because they're lying. They're using it to control you, to stop your behavior, usually when you're trying to set a boundary or speak up about something. That's why I think it's even worse, because it's not real and you can't trust it. So you would say, I don't allow myself to be treated this way. And if you can't stop, I'm ending the conversation, I'm leaving, etc. Okay? So when someone is crossing your boundaries, is when you need to stand up for yourself. Maybe not in the moment, but you can go back after the fact and let them know where you are, what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. And that's on you to decide what your worth is. That's on you to figure out what's healthy and what's not. Another time it's good to speak up is when you need something. Maybe you need advice, some support, actual physical help. Maybe you just need someone to help generate ideas. Maybe some time to hang out. Maybe you need to borrow something. Maybe you need them to step up. Maybe you need for them to show you they are present and that they're listening and that they care. Maybe you need their partnership, if that is your partner or your sibling or your coworker. Maybe you need their respect. So when you need something in a relationship, and that is vulnerability, and it is not courageous to not need. That's cowardice. That's self-protection. And if you feel that way, it's there for a reason, but it does not scream confidence to not need. Not that we put all our needs on others and we don't take care of ourselves, but there are certain things that we have to get from other people that we can't self-supply. That's how you know that. Another time where it's good to use your voice is when you've decided something. Now, this is riskier. Maybe you've changed your mind. So be respectful and tell them because they can't read it. Remember, be so much easier if they could. I know. But they can't. When you need to change the plan. When you need a break. When you need to leave a relationship. When you need to stop lending money or rescue someone. When you need to do good things for yourself that maybe you haven't done in the past, especially expressing that to people who really struggle to love themselves enough to do self-care, they're going to have a tough time. They're going to have a tough time. If you have a workaholic boss who doesn't have enough self-love to have boundaries around their time, that's risky. So a lot to consider in that. A big obvious time to use your voice is when you need to say no. No to helping them. No to showing up. No to having time. You don't have the energy, you don't have any more money, and no, you don't have a spare room, or at least you don't have one that you're lending out. No to the extra work. Just because someone doesn't step up doesn't mean you have to. Maybe no to the wonderful opportunity you just don't have the time to partake in right now. And finally, the hardest one probably is no to the rescuing. Yes to detaching and allowing other people to deal with their own lives. Another good time to use your voice is when you're being played. When you hear one more "I'm sorry," but no change is happening. Because that's manipulation. When you're talked out of your feelings. When you're being gaslit. That never happened. Instead, you say, "I'm sorry, this isn't working for me." When you can demonstrate some emotional honesty and genuineness, "I'm right here to listen, but I'm not doing this." It's time to use your voice when it's become a pattern. When their behavior becomes chronic, not acute, it's not a one-off and it's not a misstep. It's becoming a problem. It's causing resentment for you and it's hurting the relationship. When there's always an excuse, there's defensiveness. They haven't done what needs to be done to change it. It's still everyone else's fault. That's when it's time to say what your boundaries are around that. All right? Okay, so those are some times to use your voice. There's many others, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what I was talking about. You have to figure out your own struggles, what your relationships look like, what the issues are, where you need to take responsibility for and take care of yourself with others. It's not their job, it's yours. So what are some of the consequences of not using our voice, right? If you're listening to this and you're like, "No, I'm just going to stay right where I am in my box. It's safe, Mary. It's cool. I'm good." Well, here's the thing. You've heard me say, if you stuff your feelings, you're going to act them out. It's not maybe. It's not if. It's when and how. And everyone has their little style of doing that. Some people stuff their feelings for months and lose their shit and blow up and melt down and literally regress right before your eyes. Some people internalize it and their body plays it out with illness. They'll stuff their feelings with food and cause weight and health issues. They'll medicate with substances and relationships and shopping and working and sex and anything. Another big consequence, not using your voice and not bringing your voice into the room in a healthy way, is there's no way you can feel confident in my mind. You can't. You're two people, you're fragmented, and you're being dishonest. Versus if you use your voice, again, your insides match your outsides, it's clean, it's authentic, it's real, and you can relax. Without using your voice, you cannot create change in your life. We have to take a risk here and there. We have to say no to things that aren't good for us. We have to have the courage to jump into something new, to ask for what we need, to ask for help. You can't negotiate if you don't use your voice, at least not honestly, because you aren't telling them what you're willing and not willing to do. So you can't have any agreements with them. Therefore, in my mind, you cannot have partnership and you cannot have trust. You can't have functional trust or emotional trust. And change won't happen in those relationships without it. And finally, a big one and a sad one is people can't get to know the real you. And therefore, you can't truly connect with them. So your relationships are going to be very limited, very stilted, very surface. Maybe the only time you feel connected is after or during a big fight, because at least it's honest then. And that's sad. Using your voice is so important. And we want to hear you. We want to connect with you. We want to know what's going on with you. We want to hear your amends. We want you to risk asking for what you need. And we want to be able to respect you. And I can tell you, I've worked with enough relationships that cannot happen if you do not speak your truth. We want you to speak honestly and believe in yourself. We want you to choose and own your choices. And we want to negotiate with you in an honest way. And we can't if we don't know where you really stand. So what do you think if you were to speak more authentically? What comes up for you when I say that? Maybe a mix, maybe some excitement, some fear. What about the people around you? Do you think they could handle it? Why or why not? Do you think you put people around you who speak honestly? What would happen if you were more emotionally honest with others and more open and vulnerable? What would that be like? What's scary about that? And what would be wonderful? As you look back over your life, perhaps what has been the price that you've paid to keep the peace? To contort yourself, to not say what you need, to not say no, to not reveal the real you. Being assertive means being who you are, remember, regardless of who is standing in front of you, because it's about you, not them. You have your own approval now that you care about more than theirs, and you're owning and using your voice as best you can. We don't do perfect here, as best you can. And you'll know at the end of the day whether you put your truth out there or not. When you do, you'll be terrified and you'll feel 1,000% more alive and connected to others and connected to life. Okay, so there you have it. Ways we hide our voice, the price we pay when we don't use our voice, and the best times to speak up and why. Embracing your confident inner 4-year-old means rediscovering the power within yourself to express your truth in a very authentic, emotionally honest way. It's about finding the courage to use your voice with a blend of kindness and firmness while radiating unwavering honesty that reflects your true self. It's a journey towards aligning your inner world with your outer actions, and I think fostering a sense of harmony and connection. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about ensuring that your voice is heard and valued, and that it empowers you to make an impact on the world around you, and it also helps you trust yourself. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope the thoughts and the insights helped you find something that you can work on this week. If you don't already get the newsletter, you can sign up at ownitpowercast.com or message me and I'll get one out to you. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.